Well, please join me in welcoming back to the stage writer Gil Kenan and director Jason Reitman. Stand right over there. Yes.
Now we're good. Now we're not in front of the...
That is great. Wow. Well, I've got a couple of questions for you, and I guess we'll just start off with one of the things I love about the film is that you film it primarily in real time. And can you talk a little bit about the decision to do it like that?
It's interesting. I think that's kind of where the idea started. Was this is a movie about people who are making something, and what we want to do is experience what it was like in real time. And I think the first time I told Gil, I think I'm going to do something, was the movie opens at 10 p.m. with Lorne Michaels looking for Andy Kaufman on 50th Street, and 90 minutes later, live from New York, it's Saturday night.
I also want to talk about the cast, which is extraordinary, and it must be such a challenge when you're casting so many people that we're so familiar with. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach the casting?
I mean, just to be clear, 80 speaking roles in this
80
film,
speaking roles? Wow.
Which was
Yeah, and they're all here tonight.
Yeah.
Actually, someone is here tonight. Where's Catherine? Catherine Curtin. Here, stand up for a second.
Where? Oh, yes.
I work with a great casting director named John Papsadera, who I've been working with for about 10 years. He's famously done all the Chris Nolan films, and he's very good at doing ensembles, and particularly good at finding new talent, or in someone you already know, finding something in them you haven't seen before. And our guiding principle for this film was, we don't want it to be impersonations. Yeah. It's about capturing the essence of each character in at least one way. So for Chevy, it was an ego that needed to be humbled, right? Yeah. And for Gilda, it's this well of empathy where she'll sacrifice anything in herself to make the other person feel better.
Garrett Morris had to find his voice, had to find what his role was.
Search for identity.
J.K. Simmons has been in many of your films, and he is unbelievable.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. Okay,
Yeah.
all of them.
This is his largest performance.
Can you talk about what draws you to J.K. Simmons as a performer?
He's just capable of anything, The idea that he could be the father in JUNO and the teacher in Whiplash demonstrates a range I don't know in any other actor. And even in this movie, he really only has 3 scenes, and he has a song and dance number. He has a scene where he's, just kind and affable, and then he's absolutely menacing, but menacing in a real way. That's what I find extraordinary about him.
And then staying on casting for a minute, I love the fact that Nicholas Braun plays 2 roles in this, plays Jim Henson and Andy Kaufman. Can you talk a little bit about, that's an unconventional decision to make. Can you talk about that decision?
Well, I'll just start by saying that we wrote the role of Jim Henson with Nick Braun in mind.
Yeah.
And so when we would
just entertain ourselves that way.
We were
imitating him.
We had an entire script's worth of Jim Henson dialogue.
Yeah, and it was also a bit of kind of like, it's just fun to imagine Jim Henson saying foul things. But when Benny Safdie, do you know if Benny Safdie, the director, one of the directors
he's
of
had
Uncut
films
Gems,
here over the years, so yes.
Hampton's favorite, Benny Safdie. He was originally going to play Andy Kaufman. He's a huge Andy Kaufman fan. And then his film got greenlit, it became unavailable. And we just kept on going, who'd be good for Andy Kaufman is Nick Braun. And finally we thought, well, on SNL, you can play multiple characters. And we kind of emulate SNL in a lot of little sneaky ways. Even the fact that there's 2 musical performances, one about a third in, the other one's about 2/3 in. There's a weekend update in the middle. Like all these things, we're playing with the structure of SNL.
Gil, I know you talked a little bit about trying to talk to everyone who's a part of it in the research process, but can you talk a little bit more about what the research process was like in putting the film together?
Yeah, it was unusual for us because all the films that Jason and I have written together, and most of the ones we've worked on in our in our careers, have been sort of blank page inventions, right? And with this film, we had actual subject matters. A lot of them gone on to have storied careers. So we started actually as journalists more than anything, and we kept a really sort of open mind about where that process would lead us. We knew that it was going to end with Live from New York at Saturday night. That was Jason's original invention at the beginning of this process, of our conversations. But we allowed these interviews to sort of guide us. And we ended up, I mean, it was one of the most, as an SNL junkie growing up, after every one of these calls, Jason and I would have a follow-up, and we just felt so lucky that we were getting to hear these stories right from the people who had experienced
And each
them.
time it would come to life. I think that was the thing, is each time we're asking people questions, what we're looking for is that one detail that makes us suddenly feel like we're there. And we built up this Google Doc filled with different ideas. And then, interestingly, in the writing of the script, it became about geography. You know, we knew we were going to rebuild the entire 8th and 9th floor, and that the movie was going to basically be a camera following Lorne for 90 straight minutes. And at that point, you go, okay, every hallway, every stairwell, every elevator is an opportunity. Every time we're going from one place to another, we need to do scene work. So so normally you're building a script like an arc, and all right, well, the character's gonna start here, and here are the points along the way. In this, we need to get him from, we know we're gonna go 50th Street to an elevator. An elevator's gonna take us to the 8th floor. We're gonna go down a hallway, we're gonna get into the control room. Then we're gonna go into the main stage. He's gonna get a phone call, it's gonna take him up to his office. We'll go up the stairwell once we're out there. And so once you start thinking of a script from a geography point of view, it then becomes, how do we then fit in all these storylines, not only in the foreground, but kind of 4 layers deep. So as you'd probably notice as you're watching the movie, you're tracking the main conversation, but you're picking up little pieces of information around the characters.
I mean, at some point, it felt like we were trying to solve the Zodiac murders or something. I mean, we sort of had,
and we did.
Tonight's the night, guys. But we did create both a mental and visual map, and we had sort of all these extraordinary conversations. We spoke to Edie Baskin, who was the sort of historian who was photographing the events as they went on, and that conversation, among many others, she sort of took us on a guided tour of the photographs she had made that night, and we started to place people in rooms, and you know, one of the things that we had to track was like the sofa that catches on fire early on, and if you follow through in the film, you're seeing that sofa catches on fire. They need a new sofa, and first you see the old one being carted away when Lauren and Rosie are speaking in the hallway. Then the stagehands come into the writer's room.
It's the weirdest part about it. Normally when you're writing a script, once a character goes off screen, you're kind of like, all right, we'll pick up with them when we next see them. This is a movie where you actually have to think about where every prop and character are at all times while writing it.
What is SNL's legacy to each of you?
I guess there's 2 things. One, it's interesting, right? Because every generation thinks their cast of SNL is the best cast of all time. It's kind of like it's kind of like the Yankees or something like that, you know, right? Like every is like, well, clearly the best SNL, and it's like, oh, I now know your age. For me, and it's interesting, it's very funny. We literally we went out for a bite to eat. We didn't watch the movie with you guys. We went out for a bite to eat.
What happens at the end?
And as we were coming back, my phone rang. This is all true. And the woman on the other line said, I have Lauren for you. I was like, oh, okay. And Lauren called, literally, to wish us good luck with opening night. It was really sweet. And I wished him luck with the new season, and we talked a little, and we were talking about, I was actually telling him exactly this, about how important the show is to me and how special it was when I was there, and how we were trying to echo the way it was made. And he said, yeah, he was referring to one of the actors on the show who was recently in LA and was talking about how hard it is to get things made, but while you're at SNL, it's amazing how fast it happens. And Lauren said, it's amazing what you can do in 6 days. And it's true. When you're there, you only have 6 days, and in 6 days you realize anything is possible. And for me, that's what it means. It means when you get away from all the bullshit and you just put a group of not only actors and writers, but the costume people, the production designers, the people who are going to build all the things and pin the wigs and paint the sets, and you go, you got 6 days, make it happen. And that feeling of how everyone coalesces to put on a show, I think is the thing that Gil and I love. It's why we made this movie.
I mean, it is remarkable when you look at the level of stress and energy. Obviously, this is a film, and we heightened everything. But this is what they go through week after week. And tonight, as we mentioned at the beginning of this, marks the 50th season of this level of intensity, of a high wire act every Saturday when they're putting the show on. It is remarkable that there are that same level of energy, that same bravery is put on screen year after year. I mean, the legacy, obviously, one of the reasons this show has lasted as a cultural force for so long is that most people go through a sort of a personal discovery of Saturday Night Live, and it becomes their brand of comedy. And I think it's a sort of coming of age as a comedy lover. It happened to me, it happened to Jason, it happens to most people I know. You know, for me, I learned how to program my parents' VCR so that I could have a relationship with the show, and it is.
That's a useful skill to this day.
Yeah, if anybody needs any help, by the way. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you guys have made a great testament to its legacy. So congratulations on the film. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you all.